gotta hit it. And it's another Roto Hackers podcast. My name is Judah Buddha. I'm here with it's Jared, the ultimate stud of awesomeness.
I believe absolute's the word we've been going with, but maybe new season could be. But I've already named my team in our listeners league the Absolute Studs. So
I'm so sorry. The absolute stud.
It's a lot of pressure to live up to in season 2, you know.
It's true. That is true. Well, first of all, how are you doing, man? You're out in the Western North Carolina area, right?
I'm in North Georgia. Yeah, Georgia. but like North Georgia borders Western North Carolina, and I had been working in Western North Carolina.
Okay.
And so I'm here. Actually, I don't know, what the future looks like. Actually, just applied for a job in the Denver area.
Wow. Awesome.
I mean, they're probably not going to hire me. They can probably find a far less talented, far less charming, person that they can settle for nearby. So
hey, I think they should hire you. All right. So, I guess I asked because one thing we didn't cover last time was, I was thinking you were in North Carolina, but I mean, you have ties to North Carolina. Like you're saying, you worked there.
Mm-hmm. I'm literally between 5 to 10 minutes away from the state line. Yeah. And I used to spend most of my week there. So
nice. Okay. Yeah. With work and stuff. Well, I guess I was just thinking about the Carolina Panthers. Now I'm in North Carolina and I'm starting to lean a little more looking at the Carolina Panthers. And then Ron Rivera, the news about Ron Rivera having cancer sort of hit me weirdly. So he's not with North Carolina anymore. He's with Washington now, right. The Washington NFL team or whatever they're called.
The Washington football team.
The Washington football team. And I don't know. He just always seemed like such a mensch, such a great guy. And hearing that he had cancer, I'm surprised I didn't remember to talk about it last time. I thought it was kind of important, especially in the era of COVID. We talk so much about COVID, we kind of gloss over other problems that are happening, cancer and, depression, mental illness, other things like that. And so I didn't want to gloss over it. Did you see that he had cancer?
I did. I think when I don't know if anything's changed or updated from the initial story that I saw, but when I saw it, like they didn't really say, he said it was, I think, treatable, but I mean, like in anything short of something like really advanced is going to technically be somewhat treatable. So I don't think that really said much about, what stage it's in or what it is. So that was all that I really saw. So I really don't know much of anything about the situation. I don't know if, if there's been more out there.
No, there hasn't been more out there, but I also wondered, I mean, I think it's pretty treatable. But I mean, like you said, I mean, cancer is cancer, and it's got to be scary. It's got to be an important turning point in his life and in the lives of his team. I wondered if it may be a rallying point for the team, something that could really get them motivated, something, because he's that kind of guy. To me, I may be way off, but he sort of instills a sense of like loyalty.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it will be. I like as a Colts fan, the Colts went through this situation back in, I guess, 2012. I can't remember if it's 2012 or 2013 with Chuck Pagano. And, he had to step away from the team, and Bruce Arians, who, a year later or so went on to take over as the Cardinals head coach, he stepped in for Arians and for Pagano, and they really just went on. I think that was really kind of at the point where they exceeded expectations early. That was, I think it was Andrew Luck's, I don't know if it was his rookie year or his second season, but they got, some wins that people didn't expect them to get, and ended up, I think they went to the playoffs. I'd have to go back and look now, but it really did become a rallying point. It was the whole thing with Chuck Strong, became a thing there. And it was, this is kind of veering off of that. But in a weird way, though, it was for the Colts, though, like Arian stepping in and being able to take them to the next level. I'm like, oh, he's a much better coach than Chuck Pagano. And then they're going to have to let him go. He's going to go get a head coaching job because you can't fire the guy who had cancer,
Yeah.
And in a weird way, I think it ended up like helping keep Chuck Pagano around as head coach a lot longer than he really should have been, because it was such a feel good story.
Yeah.
And he, continued to do a lot of stuff with like reaching out to people in the Indianapolis community with cancer and stuff like that. And, he's a great guy, but not
he was not a good coach.
He was not a good coach.
Not a good head coach. I'll say that. Like, he's done some pretty good things as he was coordinator or what have you.
Well, yeah, he was the Ravens defensive coordinator prior to Indianapolis. But yeah, it just didn't work out. But they didn't really, of course, know at the time what they were going to have with him. It was his first head coaching job and all that. So Ron Rivera, it's a different story, but there was that wrinkle to it with the Colts. But back to your point, yeah, it really did for him become a rallying point, and I would think it probably will to a certain extent with Washington too.
Yeah, I think it will. I continue to say we have no idea from year to year what teams are going to be, and I wouldn't count them out as a decent team. Not obviously. I don't know. I have no idea. Ben, thank you, Ben, for tuning in. Says, I watched Adam Rank do a mock draft today. He really likes Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Kittle, Calvin Ridley, and Robert Woods. Well, so do I. Yeah, those are. I don't like Miles Sanders. You like Miles Sanders a lot more. I am a Miles Sanders detractor, but for the rest of them, I think Josh Jacobs is going to be top 5, maybe top 3. I think Kittle is amazing. I have him on most of my teams. I think I have him more than any other player. Calvin Ridley, I've made a major turn on him.
You've been a huge Calvin Ridley supporter for weeks now.
Here we go, and I'm really coming around on Robert Woods. Like, I was looking around today, trying to see if there's some trades I can make for him. It's hard though. I want to hear your take on these guys.
Yeah, I like all those guys. Robert Woods, I guess maybe if I were to rank them in order of how good I feel about them or how sure I am about them to, least sure, I would, of course, I think most people are going to put Kittle at the top. Even more so, even though you wouldn't necessarily draft him over Josh Jacobs or Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is usually going, early round 2, like sometimes even 10, like the last pick of the first round. And if not within the first 5 picks or so of the second round, Josh Jacobs is sometimes, or at least in the second round. But Kittle is the more, that barring injury or barring something crazy, you've got a top 3, possibly number 1 overall tight end for the season there. So that's kind of what it is. In those early rounds, we do weight it heavily to running back, but in terms of just safety, Kittle is just ultra safe. So he's first. And then I would probably say Jacobs is safer than Sanders. I think Sanders might have higher upside potentially because I still don't necessarily trust that Raiders offense that much of how much they're going to have to keep up with some of the teams. Like they're going to play the Chiefs twice. They're going to have to put points up on the board. The Broncos offense is looking pretty good. And they don't really have, Derek Carr's not tremendously dynamic. He's got Darren Waller as a good safety valve, but now I don't know if you saw where Tyrell Williams.
He's not doing so hot.
Yeah, he's got a partially torn labrum. He's going to try to play through it. They just don't have much. I mean, Henry Ruggs has come in. They've got Brian Edwards, another good young receiver. So I think Jacobs is safe. And then I would say Ridley has probably been, he's going to get the targets. He's going to get, a lot of looks in that offense. Then Sanders, then Woods, just in terms of like how confident I am about their draft position. I don't mean in terms of how I would rank them. So that's kind of, I guess, how I feel about him. I do like Miles Sanders, and I do like what you're saying about Robert Woods. The only thing that kind of scares me about the Rams is the Rams just seem to go through these periods where they just focus on a single player and other guys get neglected for long stretches. Like Woods didn't have that hot of a season until towards the end of the season. It was, Cooper Kupp. They were relying on that running game a good bit. And then at the end, it was like they did nothing but throw to Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee over and over.
Well, the truth is they threw to Woods the whole year. The problem is he didn't get touchdowns. I think he only had 4 touchdowns, maybe 3. And but touchdowns seem to be so random. And I think that he could have some positive regression. The regressive regression coming back to him this year as far as touchdowns. Who knows? I mean, maybe they'll stick with. The one thing I know is they're not going to stick with Higbee. Like everybody's so high on Higbee. Come on. I feel like that was just towards the end of the year, they went to a double tight end sort of, what do you call that? Like a release valve. He was their release valve, and it actually worked pretty well for them, but it was kind of a vanilla offense that got them through that last act of the NFL, and they actually did okay. But I don't see them doing that again. But who knows? Who knows? And like you said, it is true that it's hard to tell who's going to be their star, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because Kupp was having a monster season, and then he fell off of the map, So that scares me a little bit. But yeah, I like all those guys. I tell you, just for me, I think this season I have had a harder time ranking people than any season that I remember.
Yeah. Me too.
It just seems like almost everyone's circumstances changed from last season in some fundamental way that could have really significant impact on how they perform this year,
Yeah. Well, let's see let's come back to that idea, but first the comment section is blowing up. Jonathan Buster says Evan Silva has Jacobs as a fade.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. It's just everybody's
everywhere. I'll say I have a special place in my heart for Evan Silva. Chicago suburbs guy. I used to go every year. He'd come to the library at either Niles or Skokie, and man, just chill with a bunch of us. And then he would go out and get a beer with us afterwards and talk some more about fantasy. And I just love Evan Silva.
Nice.
But I don't agree with him on this take. This is also the guy that was, he's got his foibles. He was huge on Jeremy Hill, man. Because of Evan Silva, I took Jeremy Hill like second overall, or no, with my second pick or something like that.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah, that was bad. But I don't know. I think what people are worried about are the receptions. And I just look, when it comes to running backs, I'm sorry. I look for skill.
Mm-hmm.
And now a route running skill is it's not paramount, but it's up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're a PPR. Now, most of us are in half point PPR because that's the standard now, which is weird because standard is
right.
What people call standard is no points per reception.
Right.
Well, how do you counter this? Jacobs is going to be, I've already heard you say, and I like your point that Las Vegas is going to struggle offensively. And to the point about points per reception, if they are behind for most games, not being a good receiver or getting replaced by Richard or whatever his name is, their pass catching running back. It could be a problem.
Yeah, I think it's kind of getting overblown. Like I live in Georgia. I've watched a lot of SEC football. I remember, I don't know what his overall stats were, but I remember Jacobs making some big plays with dump offs in that Alabama offense, and so they've been saying that he's going to get more targets this season. He's going to be on the field for more passing downs and stuff like that. But look, you would probably say would you think of Joe Mixon as basically kind of a dual threat running back? Yeah. Okay. So last year, Joe Mixon played 16 games and he had 35 receptions on 45 targets, 287 yards. Josh Jacobs had played in 3 games fewer. He was injured, so he missed 3. And in 13 games, he had 20 receptions on 27 targets and 166 yards. So if you tack on a few more games and, throw in a few more catches, for his first season, you're looking at probably, 25 catches or so, and 200 or so yards. So, for one season, it's not like, it's not like he just isn't catching the ball at all. So, I am not expecting him to ever be a kind of dual threat like a, Barkley or Dalvin Cook or someone like that. But I think it's kind of getting overblown a little bit. I
feel like if you really want a really good pass catcher, go get you some Duke what's his name? Duke Johnson. Yeah.
Right.
He's an awesome route runner and pass catcher, but guess what? He doesn't run between the tackles, and definitely doesn't run between the tackles like Josh Jacobs does. The guy is almost as good as Ezekiel Elliott as far as his power and elusiveness. His stop and go, juking ability is. I just was watching some film of him, and pretty entertaining and good. He gets so many yards. I would rather have the consistent yards on the ground than catches. Especially in a half point PPR.
Yeah. You have to weight it all of these backs it's also different, because you have to weight all the factors in their skill, not only their skill, but in their type of skill, like, are they good pass catchers? Because like I said, it is half point PPR. So that does matter. But how much volume they're going to get, what scheme or offensive identity that the team is committed to, what the schedule looks like. And so I don't like getting locked into the idea that you have to draft a certain type of player. There are outliers, and we've seen with, guys like Derrick Henry, or prior to him, Marshawn Lynch, and prior to some of these guys like Lamar Jackson coming along, people thought like, oh, you can't have a running quarterback. I mean, a running quarterback is going to give you a floor, but they're never going to be, a superstar. So I'd say just don't get locked into, the idea that it has to be this mold of player in order for them to be elite for you.
Yeah. Locked in being the key phrase there. Ryan N, thanks for showing. Hey, thank you, Jonathan. By the way, Jonathan, to go back to Jonathan real quick, I was a little too harsh on your team. I went back and looked because you forced me to go back and look. And you having Cam and having you got a good set of running backs. You have a lot of rookies, and we'll see how well those rookies do.
I was never down on your team, Jonathan, and Judah usually just comes around to my way of thinking. So, just give him some time. I always have to give him time.
Thank you, Granddaddy. Okay, so Ryan N says, what's up with the guy on our league sending horrendous trade offers? I don't know who that is.
I don't think
Jonathan?
I don't think I've sent Ryan anything, so I don't think it's me.
Might be John, because he sent me some pretty horrendous trade offers. He says Bridgewater and Darnold for my best players, no counter, no Ebron. So Ebron and Samuel for Aaron Jones and Judy. Shakes my head. Look, man, I think we've got a league that has some newbies. Not newbies. I won't say that. That sounds pejorative. People that have been in the league for a long time. People that have, been doing this for, like, Jared's been doing this for what, 100 years? And
close. We'll round up. Yeah.
Okay. And then some, not so long. So just give them a break and just do like I do. Hit the X button and move on. Or send them a counter. That same guy, actually, I think I know who you're talking about. He sent me an offer. I'm like, Sam Darnold, drop him. But I sent him a counter. He took it. So look, man, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Something like that. Okay, so the next one is, if not for injuries. Oh, so he's talking about Jacobs. Jacobs is a top 5 back for me. Injuries make him a bit risky. Look, I mean, he broke his back last year. It's not like, I don't know. I don't feel like he's an injury prone type guy. He got injured last year, but I mean, most people get injured in the NFL. I hate to tell you.
I think in terms of safety, he's probably, I would put him at maybe about 7 or 8. Because I think he's safer than a Kenyon Drake, who we saw like who was kind of boomer bust in his games last year. I think he's safer than Miles Sanders in some ways, even though I feel pretty good about Miles Sanders. But I think in terms of, if he stays healthy, what you're going to get out of Jacobs is probably kind of in a tier as at probably the top of the tier, right behind the guys like McCaffrey, Kamara, Barkley, Cook, Elliott, Henry, and I'd say CEH. Based on the workload, it looks like he's going to get the way they're talking.
Yeah, I'm dropping McCaffrey fast. He's dropping for me. Like, he's in the rankings. I just don't feel good about him. And it's hard because I watch his tape and he is excellent. So, like, it goes against my philosophy. So I'm not dropping him, obviously, out of the top 5, but he's not my number 1.
So who would you take at number 1?
I would take Ezekiel Elliott. I might actually. I'm starting to consider taking Saquon Barkley as well, just because Saquon Barkley has just as much catching ability and way more power than Ezekiel Elliott. And I don't know. I think their offensive line might be a little bit better this year than the
Cowboys.
No, the Carolina Panthers. Sorry,
my
brain does not work all the time. That was 7-10. Oh man, we got 7-10. We got Jonathan. We got Ben. We got Ryan. This is a party, folks. We also have. All right. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, we got a lot of comments.
Yeah. Ben says, I really like Chubb. I'm biased because I thought I said blessed. I'm biased because he's on my team, but the Browns always run in the red zone. Chubb has been getting even more beastly. This is sort of a division between me and Jared.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Chubb. I call him the Lamborghini of running backs. And Jared, want to give your case against him?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to just nutshell it here, but it's not Nick Chubb's talent. Like, I've lived less than 2 hours from Athens for a while, so I've seen a lot of Georgia games. He's very talented. It's just the way the Browns kind of used him last year once Kareem Hunt came back. So, over the final basically about 10 games of the season, he had 2 touchdowns. And in most of those games, he had 1 target or 1 catch, So, they were bringing in Kareem Hunt for on passing downs. And then even at the goal line, they seem to want to use Hunt's versatility, to be more of a pass catching threat. So, I mean, that just terrifies me. If you take away touchdowns and you take away receptions, there's a very limited ceiling there. So they've got a new coach. I don't know what that's going to look like. Is it, could Kareem Hunt maybe get a few more carries? Chubb just scares me as, an early to mid second round pick for where he's going, with not knowing how much Kareem Hunt's going to steal from him.
I don't like that Kareem Hunt's there. I agree with you. However, I went back and looked at most of his best runs, we'll say, Chubb, and the dude is just so elusive, so powerful, so fast that he deserves to be in the top 10, maybe top 7. I think I have him in top 7. I know he didn't have a lot of touchdowns last year, but looking back at the tape, he was like this close several times. Touchdowns are kind of random. And the fact that he didn't have so many last year makes me hopeful for this year, because regression, positive regression. Sorry. Have you ever seen those cartoons that make fun of the it's like political cartoons that make fun of the intellectual dark web?
Freedom Tunes.
Yeah, Freedom Tunes. Yeah, they do. They do a great Dave Rubin, and he's like, regressive. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
I've seen those. Yeah, I will see. I don't know, but I mean, like over Hunt over his last 6 games had 2 touchdowns and rushing touchdowns, and so it just scares me. It scares me.
I don't blame you. Jonathan Buster says, Jared, it's difficult to carry Judah like you do. Thank you, Judah. Apology accepted.
Reminds me of the it reminds me of this thing I saw about Adam Driver, like comments online about Adam Driver, about Kylo Ren, of how he backpacked that trilogy. And I didn't know I didn't know what that meant at first, but then I got it later. Yeah. I've got it could be like the Mandalorian. You could just picture me. I'm gonna do that meme. I'm gonna do this Mandalorian meme where I'm the Mandalorian and he's the child that I'm carrying around. I'm gonna go Photoshop that as soon
child? Are you talking about Baby Yoda?
Yes.
Well, don't call him a child.
No. Well, I'm sorry. Let me go.
5 years old.
Let me go ahead and educate you here. It's not Baby Yoda. It is called the child, and we don't know its real name. That's yet to be revealed. So
it's not a child. It's 55 years old.
It's called the child. That is the actual. That's what they call it in the show. That's what the producers say it is. So we don't know its name. It's the child, not a child. The child.
Thank you for the education. Once again, carrying me through the show. Is there any, should we even do news today? Is there any news that you thought of or saw? I see a lot of fluff pieces.
It's hard to parse out like what is fluff and what is not. Like I just saw a thing of like Derrick Henry is getting much more comfortable catching the ball. Like if that's true, then oh my goodness, we might be looking at the number one, overall player this year. But is it probably fluff? Maybe. It is tough. I'm trying to think if there's anything else out there right now that we really ought to address.
Yeah. Is there anything major that happened? Any shifts in the?
It's looking like Cam.
Cam's going to be the starter.
Cam's going to be the starter. Yeah.
I almost picked him up in the league me and you're in. Almost. I can disclose.
Little Todd Gurley news. Falcons offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter says he expects a minimum of 15 touches weekly, which, I mean, that's not like, I'm not like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm glad he's, but it is somewhat when people are constantly, it's reassuring when people are constantly bringing up the workload issue and his knee and stuff like that. It's good to know that they, don't intend for it to be like, we're going to try to hold him to around, 12, 13 touches or something like that. So that's good. They continue to talk up CEH in Kansas City. The GM's talking about, how they expect to use him as a feature back. And then, I don't think this has really been on the little Yahoo player sticker or whatever, but I follow the Colts beat writers and they've basically been saying like so far, like how the Colts offense has looked has been like Phillip Rivers just constantly dumping passes to tight ends and running backs. So not just like Naheem Hines, but like even Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor. So and
you have their, I think you picked up their tight end.
Doyle, the tight end. Yeah. I mean, Doyle is an underrated tight end, I think. And Phillip Rivers loves to throw to the tight end. The only thing that really concerns me about that is like the Colts they brought in Trey Burton. They've got an athletic guy named Mo Alley Cox. They've picked up a couple of guys off waivers at different times. I assume that's probably just for depth and to use in 2 tight end sets and stuff like that. I think Doyle is the go-to guy. But when Eric Ebron was there 2 years ago, he really stole a lot from Doyle in terms of touchdowns and stuff like that. So I really like Doyle, but I'm also kind of worried that you could have another tight end vulture touchdowns from him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've always liked Doyle. I think he's been sort of my go-to guy if I'm in a pinch. I'm thinking of a league right now I'd like to pick him up in. The difficulty is he's sort of in that group of tight ends. It's like,
right.
Herndon, who are these? Your guy, Hooper. It's just a ton of these.
Yeah.
One of these tight ends that's like, they'll give me a consistent 6 points, or they might go off. Who cares? They're on the waiver wire. I get them whenever I want.
Right. And so the only league that I have him in is our league because it was, a 12-team league. And even those, guys that are sort of in that same class were going for like $2, $3, $4, and I needed a guy that I could get for $1. And so I'm like, okay, Jack Doyle. So, and he's behind Andrews for me. So I don't know that I'll need him.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You got Andrews. Oh, some idiot in that league took a bunch of tight ends. So I don't know. It kind of messed up everything.
Oh yeah. I remember that. It was like, got like 4 or 5. Like he might be one of the guys you're talking about that like is a new player, like is new to fantasy football,
I'm not new, but I'm trying a new strategy. Actually, it's an old strategy, but I dropped Disley today. I don't know if you saw.
Oh no, I didn't see.
It was hard for me to do, but then I thought, who the heck's gonna pick him up? He's there if I need him. All right. Well, there's something I wanted to talk about for a while now. I don't have a hit for it or anything, but handcuffs. I think it's important to go through these guys right now. And I just want to go through each team and just kind of figure out just quickly if there's anybody that we need to. I just get names in our heads,
Mm-hmm.
So, let's just start with the AFC. No, let's start with the AFC East. Buffalo Bills. This was an interesting one because everybody talks about Zach Moss, but TJ Yeldon is the veteran there, the real good route running, pass catching running back, TJ Yeldon. Do you think that TJ Yeldon? I like Zach Moss. I like you. I noticed you have him in our league.
I don't think I do in our league.
No?
Maybe
In
I don't know.
The other league that we have or something.
Maybe.
But does TJ Yeldon have any value? Maybe not picking him up right now off the waiver wire, but I feel like I want to put a star on him and really keep a sharp eye.
No,
Nothing.
Not for me.
Zach Moss?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some guys, that are being drafted way after, guys that are in sort of, well, we don't know if they're necessarily running back by committee. We don't know exactly how the split's going to break out, but guys that are being drafted way later and that are huge values as opposed to the guy that's being taken before them. And I don't put the Zach Moss, Devin Singletary situation right now on par with something like Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay in Denver or Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack in Indy, because I think those could end up being like, essentially like produce the same points. And, one guy you're taking in the 4th round, another guy you're taking in the 9th round or something. So I don't put it on par with that, but
but you get him for a better price.
You get him for a better price, and say Singletary gets hurt or something, then I would think there would be a pretty good chance that Moss would, really take over more of that role, maybe than TJ Yeldon. I think like TJ Yeldon was a thing a few years ago, but I don't have that much faith in him now.
All right. I only slightly disagree with you. I've never been a huge TJ Yeldon fan, but somebody to consider. I just believe this is going to be a year that you're going to want to, like last year, I was glad I knew the depth charts. This year, I think it's even more important with COVID, with everything. Miami, I'm going to skip because New England Patriots. Can we talk a little bit about that? I know we've talked, so let's not talk too long, but there's a consistent din that is building for Damien Harris.
Yeah.
And I think that Sony is going to lose his job. I think James White is a constant. He's kind of like he's kind of like, remember My Little Woodchuck? What was his name?
Danny Woodhead.
Danny Woodhead was just a consistent, like he just, especially in PPR leagues, just got so many catches. He was the consistent guy to go to in the 3rd down or in any passing situations. I think he's a lock, but I think the mainstay, the guy that they go to between the tackles is going to be Damien Harris.
I can see that. Yeah. I like what I read most recently actually about Sony Michel is now they're thinking he's going to avoid the pup. But Belichick, if Damien Williams is playing well, I mean, Sony Michel was disappointing last year. So it's not like he was coming off of a solid or good season and then, Damien Williams just flashed in camp a little bit. And is that really going to stick because they're going to go back to Sony? Like between the injury and, a disappointing performance last year, I could definitely see them rolling with I'm just looking at our comments here.
Oh, we got more?
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry. Ben's trolling a little bit.
Okay. Keep going.
I was just checking to see because I had a friend texting me something about a Plaxico Burress tweet, and I was trying to figure out.
Burress. Why does that ring a bell for
me? He was the Steelers and Giants wide receiver, and then he went to prison for a while for having a gun in a nightclub in New York and accidentally shooting himself.
So a real smart guy.
Yeah, making good life decisions. So I was trying to figure out, like, I was distracted for a second trying to figure out if something was going on because I didn't know what my buddy was texting me, and I'm still not sure what this is. It's Plaxico Burress tweeting out some fan site or something. I don't know. Anyway, I saw Ben's.
He said, "Oh my."
He was trolling. Yeah.
but
Unfortunately,
we did talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I didn't see it until I saw and he had already put the just kidding one in there. So I immediately saw that one too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on. I think that was. Did you finish your thought? I don't think you finished your thought on Damien Harris.
No, that was basically all I had to say. Was like, yeah, okay. I could, if he's doing well, Bill Belichick is not gonna, I don't think, have loyalty to a guy because he drafted him in the first round or whatever. Sony keeps having injury problems. He didn't really perform that well last year. So if Damien Harris
really performed well,
I think he had some moments in his freshman or his first season, and obviously I think that they drafted him in the first round for a reason, but I don't think it's gonna happen with him. So if Damien Harris, if it's not just fluff, if he really is genuinely doing well, I could completely see them moving on to him. But it's still with James White in the mix and Rex Burkhead and maybe Lamar Miller, maybe Sony, it's really hard for me to get that excited about Damien Harris.
I don't know. Lamar Miller's he might get cut. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about Harris. I don't think anybody's going to really interfere as far as okay. Well, we've talked a lot about him. You guys know our positions. Let's move on to another interesting team, New York Jets. So it's hard for me to ignore the din. If I'm listening to the din about Damien Harris, about Frank Gore. What's going on here? What's old is new again. Frank Gore is taking over a lot of the reps in their practice and stuff like that. I think it's a lot of fluff and what have you, but it's interesting. Frank Gore does not go away. He's like the turd you can't flush.
I don't know that's I don't know that's a fair comparison. I mean, because he's like Frank Gore is just tough as nails. I don't know what the comp would be for him, but
they got Frank Gore, Josh Adams, LaMichael Pirine, Trenton Cannon, and Kenneth Dixon. They have a stable of backups, but Frank Gore is sticking out. They'll probably drop a couple of those guys. Probably Kenneth Dixon, poor guy, he gets dropped all the time. Does this hurt Le'Veon Bell? And if Le'Veon Bell goes down, which he's been known to do, are we looking at Frank Gore? Or are we looking at Josh Adams or LaMichael P. Ryan? I don't know.
I'm almost the entire AFC East in terms of running game. I'm just kind of like
fading.
Like I like taking Jordan Howard. I've taken a fair amount of Jordan Howard because you can get him for pretty cheap. But for what you would have to pay for Le'Veon Bell, yeah, I mean, they've already talked about, cutting back on Le'Veon's snaps. I mean, I think he's still going to be, sort of a featured back. But, the thing about that offense is they didn't really they have the chance to improve. I mean, Darnold is going into year 3. They added Brashad Perryman. They added Denzel Mims in the draft. So they've got a chance to be better. And if they really are, then, Le'Veon could potentially be a steal. But, last year they just didn't have touchdown opportunities for him. And his yards, it was just a different world out of Pittsburgh for him.
Yeah.
So
I guess I'm just talking about handcuffed action. Like if we're looking at good steals on the waiver wire, are you looking at all at Gore? Who would you rather have, Gore or AP?
Oh my gosh, neither.
Okay, but
I mean, like, I literally would not.
We might have to make that choice like halfway through the season.
I just don't imagine. I just can't see a scenario where I wouldn't pick someone else. Like I don't think if Le'Veon ends up going down or something, or they've had like issues with him last year. He went bowling when he was sick or had an injury or something, and so there was a lot of talk of him getting dealt or dumped in the offseason that didn't materialize. So it's entirely possible that something could happen there. But I just can't imagine, like, I'm not excited about him in that role. Then if you remove him and assume that whoever fills that space, it's probably going to be some kind of timeshare by lesser players, then I'm far less, interested in it. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
So just fade them all. I gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm interested in Le'Veon. I'm putting a star on Frank Gore and putting a star on Michael P. Ryan, whatever his name is. P. Ryan's cousin, the other P. Ryan. We'll get to him, but we're moving on to the AFC North, starting out with the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, Mark Ingram is starting there. He has a good rapport with the team. He's their number one. J.K. Dobbins is one of my favorites. I think everybody knows that. He's also one of Jonathan Buster's favorites, also on our Listener League team. But Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, do you see any value in them if, say, Mark Ingram, or let's say when Mark Ingram goes down?
Oh, you think it's just a foregone conclusion?
I don't know. No, I'm just being hyperbolic. But, I mean, he is a rough player, and he often gets hurt.
I think they could potentially have value. I mean, in terms of, I'm trying to think, like backups, apart from backups that are already going to be a significant part of the rotation, like whereas, Phillip Lindsay, Marlon Mack, Kareem Hunt, guys like that, apart from guys like that who you can draft and know that you could start him as a flex at the beginning. J.K. Dobbins may not be in that same sort of situation. Ingram may still get the bulk of the carries. I think he probably will. And then what split up behind him could get split between like Dobbins and Justice Hill get some and stuff like that. So I wouldn't put Dobbins in that category, but like he's a guy that if Mark Ingram went down, like, you could have a league winner, I think, with J.K. Dobbins, with, how much he would take on in that offense and how much they like to run. So, he's very exciting. The others, if he went down, I think it would, still be, of course, a situation where they got carries and touches and stuff like that. So I think they could have some value. And look, like the whole point of, you want to do this, like you said, is, it's not out of the question for teams to lose both of their running backs and then get to the third guy. And so I think a situation like the Ravens is
Who
ideal.
do you think would be the third up? Who would you think would be the third up?
I think it would still.
Go
ahead.
I think it's Justice Hill.
You think so?
I think he has more skill than Gus Edwards. I could see them using Gus as the goal line, but Justice Hill is a good pass catcher. He's got more wiggle.
Mm-hmm.
He was young last year. He's not as young anymore. But you were going to say Gus, though, right? I
was actually kind of torn, but I actually think I agree with you. I think actually potentially Justice Hill, because he is more of, like I said, more of a receiving back. I mean, now Gus Edwards is still, young himself. Like he has only been in the league for 2 years. He's 2 years younger, or I'm sorry, 2 years older than Justice Hill. So, I think it's possible that they could still use Edwards in more of that role, because they kind of like to have, the way they kind of did that offense was Mark Ingram for them was just a battering ram,
Yeah.
I mean, he just beat up on, he was kind of like Derrick Henry light, you know, and they just hammered him ahead. And so then when you had to deal with that and then deal with Lamar, potentially keeping the ball and then kind of making his moves around there, I guess I'm going to go back to my original thought of, I think they would still use Edwards primarily. It might be much more of a split between him and Hill, but I think because of what they like to do there with that power back sort of thing, I think it would be Edwards.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to the Bengals. Joe Mixon is known to get hurt.
Yep.
Every year he has some little tweaker deaky thing. But Gio Bernard has always been a reliable backup as far as fantasy points, but not as far as not getting hurt. Often we see Joe Mixon and Gio Bernard get hurt.
Yes.
So I'm looking at you, Trayvon Williams. I think Trayvon Williams has he's going unheralded as a really good backup. Do you know anything about Trayvon?
I just pulled him up. I'm just looking now to see. He was a 6th round pick out of Texas A&M in 2019.
Mm-hmm. Trayvon, I guess. Trayvon. Yeah.
I guess he was just a special teams player, because ESPN stats don't have him getting any carries from last year.
He was super fast. Maybe I am seeing him return. He was 2018 was his was the year that he had. It was his breakout year in college.
Yeah, I'm just looking here at some blogs and stuff like that. It's thescore.com lists him as a super deep sleeper. Cincy Jungle, which I guess is probably a it's like the SB Nation page for the Bengals, says that he's the Bengals' best kept secret. I mean, again, it's hard to know how much of this is fluff, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I'm looking at him right now, watching, refreshing my memory. Just super fast. Has a great nose for a hole too. hits holes really hard, really fast. Doesn't have a lot of shift,
Mm-hmm.
but straight line speed. It's good to see. I think it'd be interesting. He kind of looks like Gio Bernard in that way. He's good. Let's see. I don't know if he has the pass catching ability of Gio, but kind of a tall guy, upright runner, just fast, so fast. Okay, so I would just say I'm putting a star in Trayvon Williams. Samaje Perine too has always been just a jag, just a guy. He's good for carries if both Gio and Mixon go down.
Yeah.
But remember Trayvon Williams. I just want to say that again. Okay. Cleveland. Do we have any? I want to be sure I'm not skipping any. Nope. No comments. Be sure to leave a comment about any of these guys. We're dropping people. Maybe people are getting a little bored, but I think this is important. It should be something we come back to. So we'll try to go a little faster. Cleveland Browns. We've talked a lot about Chubb. Talked a lot about Kareem Hunt. Both guys are not impervious to getting hurt. Dontrell Hilliard. That is the next guy up. There's nobody there other than Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
You're just going to rely on those two. Yeah.
I mean,
OBJ, he'll run sweeps. If they,
actually, probably will.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one. Pittsburgh Steelers.
So I think the Steelers are an interesting one.
Because, me too. I was glad to. Yeah.
Because we've seen how injury-prone James Conner can be, and so then, what does that look like after him? Benny Snell last year was a rookie. He was a 4th round pick out of Kentucky. He put in for the season some solid numbers. I mean, only 3.9 yards per carry, but he finished the year with 426 yards on 108 attempts. Didn't score a touchdown rushing, looks like. But he was solid. But they also then had Jalen Samuels. I've heard talk that Jalen Samuels could get cut. Samuels, I heard too. Yeah, Jalen Samuels, was a 2018 5th round pick out of NC State. He's just sort of a smaller. He's not a smaller guy, but he's more of a sort of receiving back. But then they drafted Anthony McFarland this year out of Maryland, another 4th round pick. And so Pittsburgh is a really interesting situation because Connor is so injury prone. But then who's the guy after that? It's kind of a muddled mess. And I think you would really have to look in kind of deep to Pittsburgh's beat writers and stuff like that to kind of get a sense of who, if you have Connor, maybe who you should handcuff with him.
I agree with that. Benny Snell might be the guy that I would go to immediately, but I think Anthony McFarland is the talent that will eventually take over for both James Conner and Benny Snell. But the problem is Jalen Samuels might still be sticking around, as a pass catching, he was a H-back in college. And he's a good pass catching back. They used him all over the field last year. It's weird that they want to get rid of him, but they've got so many running backs.
Yeah. I don't know what it's going to look like.
I would say keep an eye on Anthony McFarland, though. Not necessarily in the first half of the year, even if James Conner goes down early. I think by the end of the year, Anthony McFarland will be taking over one way or another.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what some of their combine numbers were. I want to compare Snell so Snell ran a 4.66 40 in the combine in 2019. Anthony, I mean, that's That's tough for running back.
Mhm.
Okay, Anthony McFarland ran 4.44. So that, obviously speed isn't everything, but for a running back, the difference
good.
between 4.44 and 4.66, I mean, unless you're, someone like Derrick Henry that can just bowl people over, and even I think, Derrick Henry probably ran, 10th of a second faster than, he ran a 4.54, so he's still more than a 10th of a second faster than Snell.
His highlights for that were actually the jumping up and benching. Henry was just amazing at that. What was that thing where the vertical? His vertical was amazing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it had to do with he just has huge legs.
Yeah.
I'm watching some Anthony McFarland highlights. Man, this guy is fast, and he just has that running back, thick legs, fast, like determination look to him. I like him.
Yeah, I think it would, it's probably going to make much more sense if Connor goes down to have, as long as he's ready and can pass block and things like that, to have, McFarland in there rather than Snell or something.
Yeah, I would just say keep an eye on Snell. All right, Indianapolis. Oh wait, no, we got to go. We're moving down. Does Ralph Webb for Pittsburgh Steelers? Ralph Webb or Kareth White mean anything to you?
I think White was the guy that randomly vultured a game where we thought it was going to be, because there was a game where Connor went down and people had picked up, I think, Samuels and Snell. Yeah. And then just out of nowhere, Pittsburgh decided that they were going to use White.
Kareth White Jr.
Yeah. So yes, it does.
It's so you remember that name.
It dredges up painful memories.
Okay, well, AFC South, we're moving over to there. Houston Texans start us off. David Johnson, Duke Johnson. I think both of them. David Johnson could be a tremendous value, but say he goes down. Both of these guys, neither of these guys has played a full season ever. I don't think. Maybe Duke Johnson has.
I think maybe David Johnson did in that monster season he had, like his second year. Yeah. Okay. So, well, I guess actually David Johnson has technically played 3 full seasons in the 5 that he's been in there. The first one, he really wasn't. He wasn't. He wasn't a regular starter. So he's only had, like, in 5 seasons, he's had 4 where he was intended to be the full-time starter. And he's only finished, 2 of those. But yeah, he has, so.
Well, Buddy Howell, does that do anything for you?
That does not ring a bell.
So apparently he is nothing very. He played for Florida Atlantic, so not a lot of people know about him. But his career, so he had 16 starts and finished his career with 463 carries for 2,424 yards and 22 touchdowns. It's not terrible, but I think they're probably going to just be. I don't know if there's much we can say about anything. Karen Higdon is the other guy. I think it's going to come down to David Johnson and Duke Johnson, and if they both get hurt, well, at least know the name Buddy Howell and Karen. He's got a girl's name. Karen Higdon, just to remember. He's probably beastly because of that. What's that song about a boy named Sue? A boy named Karen Higdon.
No idea. Well, the other thing though to keep in mind, these guys might be a good fill-in or something, but you also have to look at a certain point, you got to think like if it's a contending team, maybe even if it's
Mhm.
not, and they lose they lose their starter and their backup, there's a pretty good chance they're going to go out and sign a Devonta Freeman or make a trade before the trade deadline or something like that. So I think that's the other thing we have to qualify it with is like a team like Baltimore might say we're set. We don't need to trade for anybody. A team like Pittsburgh might say that. A team like Houston that loves to trade away draft picks for trash anyway, just as a hobby, they are more likely to go out and, get someone as opposed to turning to their, undrafted rookie fourth string running back.
I do not disagree with that. I think actually that's some wisdom. Listen to that. When you see these sort of no-name-ish rookies or somebody, I've never heard of them, backups, probably be thinking one of these guys, they're going to go out and get, especially Houston, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think we've talked a lot about Indianapolis Colts. Is there anything, do you think Jordan Wilkins comes in to steal anything? Say Marlon Mack, Jonathan Taylor, and Naheem Hines go down?
Sure. If they all go down, then Jordan Wilkins might be a good value. I mean, I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't see, a role for him really, unless, maybe Marlon Mack goes down, which is entirely possible. He's injury prone. And then, they don't want to turn it fully over to Taylor. Mm-hmm. Wilkins gets some carries, but really I don't, without both of them going down, I don't think he's a significant factor.
Yeah, I agree. There's really no names in here to really pay attention to other than, like, I have Naheem Hines on the bench on most of my teams. I think he's going to do this year, but I don't know. Get excited about Jonathan Taylor. And moving on, Jacksonville Jaguars. This is interesting to me because we've got Leonard Fournette. Okay, well, first of all, they might be just a garbage team, so I don't know how exciting it is, but Leonard Fournette is just not a good fit for the team or something, but they still on the team. Got tremendous play last year as far as carries and catches. Mm-hmm. Raquel Armstead look up his stats, because I think as far as his combine had pretty interesting. Had a really good combine. Then you got Chris Thompson, the pass catching, maven.
Mm-hmm.
And then Devin Ozigbo, who is like a Raquel Armstead clone. Like, they're both these just hugely athletic, fast, and heralded running backs. So they've got a huge stable of guys there. Are you touching any of them? Are there any names that you're like, I'm going to keep an eye on that guy?
Not really, mainly because of, potentially, I guess maybe if Fournette goes down, but I had forgotten that they signed Chris Thompson. So that makes Jacksonville's, backup situation much less appealing, because I think if, Fournette goes down, then it's probably going to be Thompson on passing downs and, Armstead or whoever on the early downs. So now being reminded of him being there, it's not an attractive situation for me. Like you said, I had Fournette in some leagues last year, and at least he did pretty much stay healthy, and he produced pretty well with a pretty solid floor, but that offense just wasn't good enough to score, to get in position for him to score a lot of touchdowns. And I think they're going to be playing from behind a lot. They traded everybody away. I don't think there's, and when teams play from behind and then they get down into goal line situations, even though they're like way out of the game and it doesn't really matter, they might as well just run whatever play is going to be best to get them in the end zone. They kind of play as if they still have a chance. And so that then means usually throwing the ball as opposed to having these big pileups at the goal line that take a lot of time to get everybody reset and this, that, and the other. So I'm not tremendously optimistic that touchdown opportunities are going to significantly improve for Jaguars running backs this year.
I agree. I do think Chris Thompson is somebody I'm looking at in a pinch. Maybe, if there is we need to talk about too, if there is a Binado, if there's a week that's just like, I can't find any running backs, I think Chris Thompson could be pretty interesting, especially as his coach, Jay Gruden is the one, he's the offensive coordinator down there now. And he loved him in Washington. I think it was Washington, right?
Yes.
And so it could be somebody that they're thinking about, Fournette's not so great, but let's go to the passing down Chris Thompson.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, Tennessee Titans, Derrick Henry. I mean, there's not much to say here, although Derrick Henry's going to go down this year. I'm just predicting it.
Oh, right. Shut your mouth.
His backup is Darrington Evans. They drafted earlier, he was like wildly like heralded, though I think he's like injured now or not doing so well.
He's got a little questionable tag on him. So yeah, I'm not sure. Let's see. Evans didn't participate in Sunday's practice. There's no indication of why. Could be a maintenance day. Says he's been a bit inconsistent in training camp with fumbles, but that his explosiveness has been evident. So that's interesting because, he was a third-round pick out of Appalachian State. He got, a good bit of praise considering where he was drafted for kind of his abilities. And, Tennessee is committed, like their identity is a running team. And obviously if Derrick Henry went down, they would have to alter that somewhat. But I think you can kind of only alter that so much, So I think he could be a really interesting player if he, obviously he's going to be volatile if he is having fumbling problems, then, like I had Chris Carson last year. And as much as I love Chris Carson, like it was getting worrisome that like, oh, he might lose his job over fumbles, so especially with a rookie, not knowing how he's going to get that figured out. But yeah, he's a really, I think, valuable handcuff. And then, behind him, I don't know anything about.
Is David Fluellen and Dallin Dawkins?
All right, I'm looking at that's not the one on ESPN. It says that it's Cinereese Perry and Kari Blazingame.
Yeah, I see them as like others. They mention them as others here on SB Nation.
Okay.
But I tend to go with yours better. The problem is Cinereese Perry is like a kind of a journeyman. Like he was undrafted, went with the Bears, kind of an old man at this point.
And I think Tennessee would be another one of those teams that if they're competitive, and you assume that they probably will be, they did well last year, made the playoffs, that if they lost Derrick Henry, I think they would be one of those teams that would make a trade unless they're just unexpectedly, underperform. Like that's a team that's going to need its running back, need a solid running back for an identity. I think they would go out and get somebody.
Okay, I don't think we're going to be able to get through everybody.
Yeah, let's just do the AFC tonight. Okay, and then we can do NFC Saturday or whatever.
Another night, Saturday. Okay, sounds good. Okay, moving on to the AFC West, the Broncos. I think this is interesting, but I don't know if there's much we have to say about it. Melvin Gordon, not a very. I don't know if he's ever had a full season.
I've had Melvin Gordon. He has a very difficult time staying healthy.
Yes. Philip Lindsay, also a small guy who could get hurt.
Yeah,
Roy,
he hurt his wrist.
at the beginning of the year last year or this year or something.
I think it was the end. Let's see. Was it the end of the
Of last year?
Let's see. I'm looking to see. I think it was at the end of the 2018 season. Yeah. And so then I think it still kind of hampered him a little bit.
Okay.
I believe that's when it was. Anyway, yeah, the Broncos are interesting to me because, Royce Freeman, like they really kind of drafted him to be the guy. I mean, Philip Lindsay was undrafted. Freeman was a high third round pick out of Oregon. And then obviously, that's never developed. And now the fact that they signed Melvin Gordon, obviously they believe that he's never going to develop into what they hope that he was. But like if Gordon goes down and Lindsey goes down, even if Royce Freeman is not that good, he's potentially in an offense that could give him good opportunities.
And guess what? Melvin Gordon's already down. He's got a hip thing. Yeah. He's seeing a specialist about his hip. So, first of all, Philip Lindsay, get him everywhere you can if it's not too late. It probably is. But I mean, a lot of people haven't drafted yet. I love the fact that you have been high on him for a while, not necessarily because you love the guy, but because kind of like you're saying, he's a talented dude who's behind a very injurious running back. So
yeah.
Now there is a guy that I'm curious about, and that is Levante Bellamy. Watch the football guys. All right, to get their take, they are a Denver Broncos show.
Okay.
Cecil Lammey, he lives in Denver, and he often talks about the Broncos. He does a radio show about the Broncos, and he talked about Levante Bellamy as somebody who could easily outplay and outrank Royce Freeman. So I don't know. Just keep that name Levante Bellamy in your mind. Maybe put a little star on him just in case. See what he does. Next, we have Kansas City Chiefs, another place that has been, I don't know, for the last couple of years has been sort of a running back quagmire. Damien Williams is not coming back. He's going to opt out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the godsend, but is he? And then Darwin Thompson is the clear backup, but they still have DeAndre Washington, Darrell Williams, Elijah McGuire. Someone's going to get dropped there. I think, I don't know. Are you so on the off chance or very easy chance that Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets benched or hurt? Are you looking at any Darwin Thompson?
I mean, I think the Chiefs just have, by virtue of that offense with Patrick Mahomes, whoever gets in there, if they can just stay healthy a little bit, then I mean, that's a like RB2 for you. Like no matter how bad they are, really, I mean, it's kind of like, Damien Williams did well with it. LaShawn McCoy, if he could have, stayed healthy, I think would have been serviceable last year. They're just too good for the running back to not produce as a result. So, DeAndre Washington, I think, is the go-to guy there, probably behind CEH. They signed him from the Raiders. He did well while Josh Jacobs was out. Darwin Thompson, I would really have to kind of look up to see, does it sound like he's made any real progress?
They're saying he's the number 2.
Darwin Thompson's the number 2.
Yeah, that's what all the reports are saying. I mean, I don't know. They might just be blowing smoke, but they're saying Darwin Thompson number 2. Now, Darwin Thompson is a Matt Waldman favorite. Matt Waldman of the He does a lot of tape review and stuff of college players. Loves Darwin Thompson. Last year, I didn't see much from the old Darwin Thompson. Seems like kind of a small guy. When he got reps, he was, I don't know, he's okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe here's well, this is fan sided. I don't know if this is, there's so many like sports sites out there now. I don't know what the credentials of any of these people are. It's talking about he's like highly likely to get traded. So
Darwin Thompson?
Yeah. It's a site called Fansided.
Okay.
I don't know. A lot of these guys.
Well, I mean, and teams do that. They're like, hey, he's our number 2. He's really good. Gonna trade him. That could be. You don't want to trade. You want to get as much as you can for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's kind of what we talk about, the fluff. Is you never know. It's so hard to parse out like what's really, and really, you almost have to kind of either be a fan of the team so much that you follow the beat writers, or so invested in fantasy that you follow the beat writers for every single team, because there's I feel so much more confident about the Colts situation than I do a lot of other teams, because like I follow those writers on social media, and I've seen the team myself a lot more closely for years, and know how that coaching staff likes to operate and stuff like that. So I think that's really like, if you want to be like the ultimate fantasy player, is just like really get tuned in to all of the beat writers for all 32 NFL teams. It may mean following 100 reporters. You multiply 32 teams, and 2 or 3 different agencies reporting on them. Like if you've got The Athletic, you've got their hometown paper, and maybe something else, you're looking at 32 times 3, you're looking at 100 or so beat writers that you would just follow. But if you want to be the ultimate fantasy player, maybe that's maybe maybe we're slacking off by not doing that.
And one thing we want to do is, by doing this, we want to look at we just want this to be to prime the juices, right? To get our salivary glands primed, to know the names at least, when it comes up, like, oh, wait a minute, I know this guy. When you look deep into your waiver wire, don't ignore some of these names. Let them pop up in your eyes and in your mind. We have
just over 2 weeks, away from
that's right
the season opener.
We are almost there, folks. We are almost there. Handcuffs are super valuable, Ryan says. I think they can be. I mean, I think knowing who they are is really valuable. I don't know if putting them on your bench is. Ryan N says Broncos and 49ers handcuffs are going to be important. Yeah, I think particularly the 49ers. We haven't. I don't know if we're going to get to them. No, we're not going to get to them.
They're NFC, so
tonight, but we'll be talking about them soon. All right, to kind of wrap it up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders and Los Angeles Chargers.
Chargers are in. Let's do Chargers last, because I think they're interesting.
Oh, do them last. Okay, well, let's just do the Raiders really fast, just because I think we should hit on it, because I don't know if anybody knows who Lynn Bowden Jr. is, but I think you need to know that name, right?
Yeah, I think so.
He is somebody who a lot of analysts know, but jamokes like me, I see Bowden, I'm like, Bowden? Who the heck is Bowden? But apparently he's an excellent backup for Josh Jacobs. Behind him, all you got is like Rod Jamoke Smith and Jalen Richard, who is, he's a good pass catching back, and I think he probably will be there. James White, but I think Lynn Bowden Jr. he's their rookie, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They drafted him out of Kentucky, and again, 3rd round pick, and I think for your casual NFL fan, they're like, oh, if you're not a 1st round pick, but,
Right.
3rd round pick in the grand scheme of things, a lot of big time players come out of 3rd round picks. So he was a 3rd round pick. I don't really know what to make of him, because he's a versatile player. I don't know if Jacobs went down, how much of a role he would have, because he doesn't really seem to fit a box very well.
It looks like I'm trying to see if there's any good tape on him that we can share. But let me see if there's any Yeldon on him, because that would be a good thing to look at. Matt Waldman. Matt Waldman does some pretty good. Matt Waldman has some. He does the RSP Boiler Room. Let's see. Does he have any? No. Lynn Bowden Jr. No. Looks like he's a pretty versatile player, though. Looks like that he could be a really good pass catcher. That could be somebody who comes in and plays more of that 3rd down scat back, as opposed to Jalen Richard.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be interesting to watch. I've heard a constant. I've heard his name come up more than once. I'm like, who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
So just somebody to keep on your radar. Lynn Bowden Jr. If I'm a Josh Jacobs owner, I think I'm probably going to be extra interested in Lynn Bowden Jr. But Jalen Richard would probably be Rod Smith was a pretty good backup for. He's a big dude, pretty good backup for. I think, if I'm not mistaken, for Ezekiel Elliott for a little while.
Yeah, he was a backup. I don't remember what he actually did.
All right, well, just keep those names in mind, especially Lynn Bowden Jr. Okay, to finish us up here for the AFC, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. Austin Eckler is the starting running back, I guess. He was last year when Melvin Gordon was holding out. But he's a small scat back.
Yeah, Austin Eckler's a guy kind of like Aaron Jones, who really kind of terrifies me as a 2nd round pick. He was incredible while Melvin Gordon was out last year. But Phillip Rivers is gone. Phillip Rivers, who loves to dump off to his running backs, just like earlier I talked about how Colts beat writers are saying the Colts might catch. One of the comments from one of the Colts beat writers was, I think Colts running backs have caught more passes during training camp this year than they did all of last season.
Wow.
So that's how much he's dumping off. So on the flip side of things, in LA, when you go from Phillip Rivers to Tyrod Taylor, is he still going to check down as much like that? And then, on the other, and then on top of that, how long do they go with Tyrod Taylor? Does Justin Herbert come in? What does the offense look like with Justin Herbert? So I think, the Chargers skill players are volatile, just as volatile almost as they can be. Mike Williams tends to get hurt a lot. He's hurt.
He's already hurt.
He hurt his shoulder. Hunter Henry has torn his ACL, I think, a couple of times. Keenan Allen had a couple of season-ending injuries years back. Fortunately, he stayed healthy. And then Austin Eckler, is like you said, he's more of a, he's more of a receiving back. It was interesting. Like, last year he only had, 2 games where he had more than 66 rushing yards. He only had one 100-yard game, and he had a 70-yard game. And the rest of the time, it was, just 58, 66, 36, 60, 7, 7, 3, 19, 24, 16, 19, 11. And he was making his living off of, catching those passes, those dump offs and stuff. Are those going to be there? So, man, that scares me a lot. And, so are they then going to incorporate a second, a more of a power back more? Right. And if so, is that going to be Justin Jackson, or is it going to be Kelly, Joshua Kelly, who was their 4th round pick out of UCLA? A lot of people think that he may beat out Justin Jackson for that number 2 role.
There's talk that so last week they said Justin Jackson is a lock for the backup role, the between the tackles, goal line. And then this week they say Joshua Kelly looks like he could be a lock for the second, for the backup. So it's, I don't know. Austin Eckler could easily go down. I think that one of these guys, either Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly, could ascend as a really good, but then it goes back to the team. Now, if the team does well, I think that one of these backs, not necessarily Austin Eckler, because to your point, Tyrod Taylor does not check down. What he does is he runs, which opens up running lanes for a running between the tackles running back. So I don't know. It is a weird situation there right now, especially for running backs. I'm keeping my eye on Joshua Kelly and Justin Jackson. I saw that Justin Jackson was taken in the 11th or 12th round, I think, in our league. Or no, wait. We did, he was taken for like $1. We did the, so, I mean, auction draft. So, but he is getting, people have him on their rosters. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have something to say?
I have a thought actually that AJ texted us a good reminder. Caleb, I should say. Or no, AJ. Sorry. I go back and forth between people's names and pseudonyms and like, wait a minute, which one am I supposed to be using here? Sorry, that's my old man brain. But sticking with the AJC or the AFC, man, I'm struggling. I'm struggling here at the end. Yeah, we're nearly at midnight on the East Coast, and I'm on an old man. So not the AJC. The AJC is the newspaper for Atlanta, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Sticking with the AFC, what he texted us was just a good reminder to mention the Earl Thomas situation in Baltimore, and how that can hurt Baltimore's defense. And I think it's interesting because I saw like what he allowed them to do last year. There was a good like infographic out there about what Earl Thomas allowed them to do, like playing the middle of the field in that safety spot. Is they by a wide margin rushed the passer with the most people of I think any team in the NFL last year. So take him away, and they're going to have to, if they intend to continue doing that, they might have to move one of those, safety like they have in the past or something like that. Because that he was apparently a big part of what allowed them to rush the passer with so many people last year.
That's fascinating. He was a safety, right? Free safety or just a safety?
I don't remember if he was. I think he was free safety. Yeah, but I'm not.
Yeah. And so that's interesting because I have seen how losing one guy can really disrupt a defense because you have to. It's almost like they compensate. It's like your arm goes lame and you have a hard time doing regular stuff like typing or something. You have to compensate. You have to move people around, and it can disrupt the whole thing. But can you explain what? So he was just not getting along with the team, and he hit somebody, right? He hit the team captain.
I think he did hit him. What was funny was he posted the video to his Instagram of the play that set him off. And so like, I'm not sure exactly, what made him mad on the play or whatever, but the clip ends with him like, ripping his helmet off and throwing it and screaming at people and stuff like that. So I'm not sure why he did that. It was, like social media was kind of making fun of him for like, well, okay, Earl Thomas just basically like shot himself in the foot for his grievance with the team or whatever. I don't know if he did or not. Sometimes those things work out in weird ways, and players are still, they win their grievances or whatever. Anyway, yeah. It was just funny that he, would post that, but you see people do that of thinking like, oh, this is going to put me in a good light. And you're like, no, it really doesn't, so, so anyway, that was interesting, but now he's on I think, it's important because Baltimore's, being taken as a top 3 defense. Usually it's, San Francisco goes first, and then typically it's kind of a choice for people between taking Pittsburgh or Baltimore next. Sometimes every once in a while people will take Buffalo or something. Typically Baltimore's top 3. So I think that could be, significant if they have to overhaul that defense,
Yeah, I'm not loving I have a couple Baltimores wherever I did take a defense, and I'm not loving that. Last few things. MathQuest says, given the overhauling to the receiving core this offseason with the selection of Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, it looks like he's talking about Las Vegas hybrid Lynn Bowden. Could Derek Carr crack the top 10? Oh, because Bowden catching passes and just having really good wide receivers and such. I don't know. I've been seeing stuff about what's his name? The guy they just went out, the guy they traded for. What's his name?
Marcus Mariota?
Yeah, Mariota.
I see, like, look at this. This is how I have to carry this, is I don't even get a position. I don't even get the hint of a position that we're talking about. I just have to know. Backpacking this. I'm backpacking.
You knew it. You're backpacking this.
I have not. Yeah, I haven't really been following that. Okay. But I'll let you say, well, like, whatever you've seen about it. Just I have just a simple thought of like, I don't think there's any chance that Derek Carr cracks the top 10. Just really? with rookie receivers. No, for me, I would be stunned if he cracked the top 10. I think this is going to be a, run-based offense. They'll throw to Darren Waller, but, that's a lot of rookies to have as your primary, weapons.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think he could crack top 12, but you're right. I don't think top 10. I think he has some potential, but like I said, Mariota being on his heels, who knows?
Maybe there's a way he could crack the top 10 is if a bunch of other quarterbacks miss 3 games with COVID and he stays healthy for the whole season. That's how he could crack the top 10.
And to that point, he might be a good streamer. I would keep an eye on him as a streamer if he's got a good matchup. He's got a lot of, I mean, to MathQuest's point, he's got a lot of places to throw the ball.
Yeah, I think that's a tough ask to have that many rookies. I know the Broncos have, Sutton's pretty young going into his third year, I guess. Noah Fant's going into his second year, and then 2 rookie receivers in Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. But Judy's a very NFL ready rookie. I think that's just a different situation. I think that's just a tough ask for the Raiders with that many of your primary deep threat weapons being rookies, especially like we've talked about in a year where rookies haven't gotten as much of an opportunity to, be around the team and integrate and learn the playbook and everything as they have in past years.
All right. Well, I think there was something last thing I wanted to say. I can't remember. There was something I can't remember. Let's see. Was it in the I did see some news or something about, I can't remember. But there was some things about it seems like a lot of people are getting these little dinged up. This is why I think it's going to be important to have a good sense of who's on the depth chart, who's coming up next. When you're looking at the waiver wire, it's always good to see like who is kind of struggling, who can I be looking at to pull off the waiver wire, maybe in anticipation before the weekend, grab somebody, and Ugzebo or Ugzebo, what's his name? Ugzebo, whatever. For the probably not him, but think about it.
Yeah, to your point, and there's really no way. There's going to be no data on this. You would just completely have to guess about it. But you wonder. You've obviously got teams like Tampa Bay where Tom Brady's like, get out here and catch passes from me, or I will murder all of you. But you have other teams where with COVID and the lockdowns and stuff, how many of those guys just kind of relaxed and were kind of sedentary for a while? And like there was a time where I had been running. I stopped running for a while and then went back to it after a few months and didn't really slowly work back into it. And I got a stress fracture in my leg from trying to go back to it too quickly. And so you wonder, if guys, weren't working out, things like that, didn't go to the gym. I mean, most of these guys, have the money to afford their own home gym, but if they weren't doing that, if that could be tied to some of this, and maybe it's not really any different than usual. Maybe we're imagining that, but I wonder if that's going to have an impact.
I think it will. I really think it will. I just remember seeing people hold out, and then when they come back, not being in the best of shape as far as still being in, like, you look at them, you're like, this is an athlete, but right. Like you said, it's just sometimes you get out of rhythm and you leave yourself vulnerable. Yeah.
Well, just, your muscles and bones or, anything else, if they don't have that constant, tension on them that they're used to, and then there's just nothing for a while, and it's just like a shock to the system. So I've always heard that like the thing that's worse than not working out at all is to like stop start just because those layoffs just make it worse for your body. So yeah, I'm curious to see if we're gonna see an effect like that, and I really don't think there's any way to know until we get into the season. And then if we do start having tons and tons of injuries, then especially like soft tissue injuries and stuff, then I think that's going to be a pretty good indicator that maybe that is what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good to get a head start on it. Look at these names. If you want, I will. Let's see. For those of you who are following, still here, I will post the. I will post the article I was reading that sort of just lists them all in the comment section. Crap, that's the wrong place. Okay. Was there anything else that you? Oh, there was something I wanted to talk to you about that was sort of important. I can't remember. And it's not like me trying to do the trick
as you yeah, like, well, that's what happens, boy who cries wolf. You do that enough times, and now people aren't going to believe you when you really do have something.
I know. Well, I really did, but I can't.
You'd at least have to ballpark it for me to.
Yeah. No, you got to read my mind. I think that's just gonna have to do it. I mean, part of it is I'm just tired and ready to. Nick Foles being ahead of Trubisky as quarterback. Do you think that helps anybody's outlook fantasy wise?
Last year with Jacksonville, man, I don't know, because I would, if not for last year with Jacksonville, I would have said absolutely. But man, Nick Foles was not great with Jacksonville last year. The thing he had in Philadelphia that really helped him a lot was, well, a lot of the time, especially when they won the Super Bowl, it was Frank Reich being there, and just a system that was designed to adjust to his strengths and weaknesses. Now with what happened in Jacksonville last year, where they, ended up going back to Minshew, even after Foles was healthy and stuff, they just, neither one of them were doing great. So they kind of bounced back and forth between them a little bit. I would have, hesitation and reservations about that. I think maybe the thing that would make a difference here is that, Matt Nagy is supposed to be a great play caller. Whether he is or not, it's been so hard to evaluate because he's working with Mitch Trubisky, and so he's working around all of Mitch Trubisky's flaws, which are multitude, and so I think it's been really hard. Like sometimes I'll look at Matt Nagy and be like, gosh, this guy is so overrated. I mean, and then I remind myself of like, well, Mitch Trubisky is the quarterback. So that's actually, now that you mention it, not even from the perspective of Foles so much, but just from the perspective of him having a quarterback who, if Foles can stay healthy, because that's another thing, because Foles is like a lanky, lean guy, and he's gotten, he left some of those Eagles games and you weren't sure if he was going to come back or not. And then he got hurt in Jacksonville last year.
Exactly, yeah.
So I don't know if he can stay healthy, but I would be really interested. But, he has proved in the past that if he's in the right system and he stays healthy, and he has some weapons around him, which he would in Chicago with Allen Robinson, et cetera, that he can, be good enough to win games for you and win playoff games and stuff. So I'm now more interested to see what happens with Chicago, and if Matt Nagy, how Matt Nagy looks. I'm really more interested in how Matt Nagy looks than I am about Nick Foles, because we've seen what Foles has done in the past. We've never seen Matt Nagy as a head coach with a serviceable quarterback.
Yeah, and a serviceable quarterback, Nick Foles he's good at some of these tricky. I mean, he played with some of the most. What's his name from Philadelphia? Is a pretty complex coach as far as play calling and stuff goes. So, I did have one last thing about, what is it called? Sorry, I'm tired. Handcuffs. I wanted to share this. This is like a beat writer talking about Joe Reed. I didn't even see Joe Reed on the list, but I think it's important to that they're saying Joe Reed might be sort of, if Eckler goes down, a real good Eckler replacement as far as pass catching and his movement out of the backfield. I don't know. Just something to think about.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I had never heard his name before. I think this episode is just really about hearing names so that we're not completely unfamiliar with people. Joe Reed, that's a name I had not heard before.
That's the first that I'm hearing of it. So
Joe Reed. So just an interesting thing to store away. Joe Reed, okay, he's a running back and people like him on the team. So not saying go out and drop Marlon Mack for him or something, but
I mean, people really should just kind of take it as, I don't know how many guys I think all the guys that that you should consider adding on your waiver wire or something, we've like expressly identified those. So most of these like guys, like you said, are just like suddenly you see that so-and-so has an injury, like in practice. Oh, you get a little alert that so-and-so's torn his ACL. Then, you maybe know the backup, but maybe there's an opportunity for you to go get the third string guy, who could end up, having a significant role. And, we'll talk about more of those in the NFC next week. But, one that comes to mind is, the situation in Minnesota where, Dalvin Cook's injury prone. He got hurt last year. Madison came in. Madison then got hurt.
Yeah.
And so then, then it's down to like third and fourth string running backs. So yeah, it's good to keep in mind. Just some stuff for us to kind of touch on before, especially next week, we'll be 1 week out from the season. We can kind of, hit on some more of the basic stuff then. But
yeah. Okay, well, we still got 2 viewers. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. I hope some of this was helpful. We intend to just give you as much information, and I just like talking with you about it, Jared, and with the comment section as we sort of pick apart some of these things.
Yeah.
So until we will meet again on Saturday morning. Until then, or some of us will. I don't know if all of us will. And we're going to start meeting more often as the season quickly approaches.
Yeah.
So good night. Huh?
I said, yeah, we're to that time almost where like within 2 weeks or so is where I really I don't think about it. I mean, obviously I think about it because we're talking about it, but like think with my feelings as something that you might say. I don't think with my feelings or feel with my thinkings until we get inside that 2 week mark where I really let myself be excited about it. Yeah. Especially this year with COVID. So
yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the all right, Mathka still with us. Thank you for sticking with us, Mathka. Thanks guys for coming. It's episode late. Hey, we're here for you. We're here for each other. I think it's a great time. And we will see you next time.